Hello everyone, welcome to day 2. So day 2, we will be identifying the parent function. And there are 6 parent functions that we will be differing between. So here's some practice here. This is similar to what you guys were doing in the homework assignment yesterday, so I won't go into too much depth, and if you feel like you can skip this part, feel free. Otherwise, if those want extra help, feel free to pay attention. So we're completing the table, then plotting the points, and then drawing a line. So remember, this is absolute value equation. So what's the absolute value if we plug in -2 in for x? So we got -2, absolute value -2. Remember, distance from 0, absolute values are always positive, so +2. And we have absolute value of -1, just 1. Absolute value of 0 is 0. Absolute value of 1, remember that's the distance from 0. And the distance from 0 to 1 is 1. Absolute value of 2, just 2. So now I'm going to plot the points. We have -2, -2, so I'm going to go -2 in the x direction, up 2 in the y. And we have -1, +1 here, 0, 0, which is the origin, 1, 1, and 2, 2. And I'm going to draw a line connecting them. So remember, absolute value looks like a V. And remember, we'll be connecting this function to the name, to the graph. This is kind of what you guys will be doing today. So this is the absolute value pairings. Now we have our rational equation. So now we're doing that same thing where we're plugging in. So if we plug in -2 for x, you get a y value, or f of x value, of being -1/2. We're going to do the same thing. So we have 1 over -1, which is the same thing as saying -1. We have 1 over 0. And remember, this goes back to a couple units ago where we kind of talked about this when we did the unit circle. This, and it's not 0, because remember, you can take 0 and divide by something, and that answer is 0. So if the numerator and denominator were switched, if we flip-flop that, then it would be 0. But since it's not, our answer is back to that whole undefined. I'm just going to write UND for undefined. So that point will not be on your graph. Now we have 1, if we're plugging in 1 here, just 1. And then we have 1 over 2, just 1/2. So now we have our ordered pairs. Now we can plot them. We have -2 in the x, -1/2. So this is going to be in between that 0 and 1. We have -1, -1. And we have 1, 1. We have 2, and then 1/2. I know we don't have enough points, but this graph is going to end up looking like this if we were to continue. But for the sake of time, we won't keep plotting. I just want you guys to realize that this equation here is going with this graph, because another way you can kind of always know, because when you plug in 0, if you were to plug in 0 here for x was undefined, and since it doesn't touch, so there's no point where x is 0. So if I were to draw a line here, nowhere, it does not touch anywhere on the y-axis when x is 0. So that's how you can kind of help determine that is going to be paired with this equation here. And here's one more that we're going to do. I'm not going to do all of it for the sake of time because you guys did that in your homework assignment, but we'll do one more. So now, plugging in, whoopsies. Let's see if I can, there we go. Back to the marker. So I'll plug in -2 in for the equation. So -2 cubed, is that going to be positive or -8? Well, if you're squaring a negative and it's if the negative is in the parentheses or in the grouping, then it's going to be sorry, if you're squaring it, it's positive. And if you're cubing it, think -2 times -2. So we got -2 times -2. That gets us to +4. And think +4 times -2. That is equal to -8. So this in turn gets us to -8. So if you're squaring a negative, it's negative. Sorry, if you're cubing a negative, it's negative. Wow. Oof. Same thing goes here. So -1 cubed, is that going to be positive or -1? Well, since it's negative, it's going to be -1. Since we're cubing it, if we were squaring it, it'd be +1. I'm going to erase this stuff so we have some more room. Okay, now we can move on. So we got 0 cubed. This is going to be 0, because you're taking 0 times 0 times 0. And that's just 0. So then we have 1 cubed. That's 1. +2 cubed. It's +8. So now we'll graph the points. We have -2, -8. So 1, 2. At this point, we have -1, -1, 0, 0. And then we have +1, +1. And then 2, +8. So now if we were to draw a line, this one kind of reminds me of like a disco, like you're doing like a John Travolta, like a Saturday Night Fever kind of thing, but where you're doing like the disco moves and your arms are crossing, kind of like that. That's how I kind of think of it as. So remember, so now the x cubed is going to look like this guy here, where it's going to go, it's going to be negative, it's going to be start off down here, it's going to come and crisscross, move over, and then come up here. Now we're going to try to match these to the name. So we can use we might not know all the names for these right now, but we're going to try to think and use some process of elimination to kind of think our way through. Well, if you see, the thing that kind of jumps out to me right away, if you're starting this with cubic, think it's going to be, think cubes. So you think 3-dimensional. So when it's 3-dimensional, you think it's in the cubed form. So to the third power. So we have x cubed. So x cubed here, cubic. So we know, there we go, that can go to that one. And the rational value, I know that might not be a familiar term with you guys right now. If so, we can skip over that and go right to linear. So linear, remember that just means linear is a straight line. So which of these over here on the left do you think is going to represent a straight line? Yeah, for those of you who are at home, I feel like I'm like Dora the Explorer right now asking, oh, do you know where the map is? Oh, goodness. I should just not do that. Okay. Well, that's going to go here because x, that's just a line, so a linear line. So now rational equation. Oh, that should be absolute value. Wow, goodness. I'll fix that in the notes. That should say absolute. Sorry about that. Now we know what absolute value looks like. We look and we see that down here we have absolute value signs. So there we go. Absolute value goes with the equation with absolute value. Wow, sorry. Now we have rational equation, and that might be something that you guys aren't as familiar with. And now we have square root. Do you see anything over here with a square root by it, or do you think something will be close to square root? Yeah, we have a square root sign right here. So we're going to say that's the square root. And now we have determining between a rational equation and quadratic. And quadratic is going to go with this one here. A quadratic. And then we have, last but not least, we have our rational equation. We're going to do some more practice with this. Again, this was just kind of introducing, seeing how you guys could use some hints about the name of it to figure out which one it belongs with. So now this page, I highly recommend, if you haven't written down anything in your notes today, I highly recommend writing this down. If you write one thing, write this down and draw them out. Because this is essentially, these 6 functions are what will be on your homework assignments and quizzes or to follow. So feel free to pause this if you need to. I'm just going to move on. So because we did this, you did this in your homework yesterday, so you should have them already out in your homework assignment from yesterday. So you can always refer back to that as you're doing your homework for nights to come or days to come. So remember, feel free to email if you have any questions. Remember to attend the forum, the homework quiz, and do the homework. Have fun.